So what we're going to do, this is 2.5. We're going to call it linear models. You're not going to be taking a lot of notes, but you're going to want a place to write the equations down that you get in the calculator. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to find, I'm going to give you some kind of story type problem. It's not really a story problem, but some kind of data. In fact, the first problem that we're going to do is the electricity cost per month in Texas. So you're going to get some kind of data. It's going to be modeled by, and you don't have to write this part down, some kind of scatter plot. And then we're going to come up with an equation that models that scatter plot. So you guys probably did this in Algebra 1, and they called it line of best fit. Does that remember line of best fit at all? Basically, when you did this, you did it all by hand. Like it. You did it in Algebra 1 because it's in our curriculum. But you do it by hand, and then you draw your line, and you pick 2 points, and we have to write our equation from our 2 points. So today, we're not going to do anything by hand except write down the equation that we're going to have the calculator compute for us, because we're going to have, well, this would be 12 different points, and it'd be crazy to try to graph all of it. So all we're going to do today is come up with our equation, y equals mx plus b. The reason we come up with an equation is because if I had some kind of data and I could predict what's going to happen up here, I can then just plug into my equation to come up with the prediction what would happen in the future or whatever the data is to give you. So we're going to use it for 2 reasons. We're going to first find the equation, and then second, we're going to make some kind of prediction. Okay? So go ahead on your calculator. Well, I'm going to write this down. How do I want to do this? I'm going to click off of this. Actually, I'm going to have you do one more thing. I'm going to pause this for a minute. Here's the trick for today. You have to keep up with me with the calculator. So stay focused. It's not a difficult thing. But this is your only day of instruction on this. But I'll try to go between the two so we can do notes and the calculator. So we're looking at example 1. Example 1 says the table lists average monthly temperatures and electricity costs for a Texas home in 2008. The table displays the values rounded to the nearest whole number. Make a scatter plot and describe the correlation. We are only going to make an equation. So we're going to use this data and come up with some kind of an equation that kind of models this data. So here's the first thing you're going to do. On your calculator. So this is what your calculator looks like, right? So on your calculator, you're going to go into your home button for this. Is going to be this button here called Stat. Okay? Let's see if that works. Yes, it does. So the Stat button brings up this screen, and you can see it bigger here, but this is what your screen should be, correct? Yep. Okay, so always remember Stat is your home button. That's where you go back to do everything. So to start it, we're going to clear our lists so that we can put new data in our list. So we're going to go down here to number 4. Mine's slow. Hit enter only one time, so it just says clear list. Because then you have to tell it what list do we want to clear. We're going to deal with L1 and L2. So you're going to have L1. If you look at the number 1 down here, you'll see L1 is there. So you're going to hit the second L1. Then you have to say comma, because it's grammatically correct. The comma is above the 7, comma, second L2. Okay? Once your screen is this, here, so every time you're going to start with Stat, yes.
How do I get out of the periodic table app?
Just hit second quit. Second and then right now.
You can go with period.
So Stat, clear list, L1 kind of L2, and then hit enter, and it should say done.
Done.
So it cleared your list, L1 and L2. Everybody good with that? I'll give Maya a minute to catch up.
I'm sorry.
L1 was second 1. And then comma is above the 7. And then L2 is second 2. Okay? And then hit done, and it should say, or hit enter, and it should say done. Does anybody say error? Okay, so everybody says done. Okay, so now that I've cleared my list, what do you suppose I'm going to do to my list?
Make a list.
I'm going to make a list. So what is my home button for this? Stat. So I'm going to go into stat. And what do you suppose out of all of these would allow us to change or put stuff into a list?
Set up as sort edit.
No.
Set up a.
No. Edit. If you're going to change something, you're editing something. So we're going to edit this. And you should see when you see edit, you may not have all of these L's, but you should have at least an L1 and an L2. If you do not, raise your hand so I can come fix it for you. Does everybody have L1 and L2?
Yeah.
Okay, here's what you need to know. L1, and you may not have to take notes on this, but just in case, I'm going to make it in the video. L1 is always going to be our X values or our input. L2 is going to be our Y values or our output. So one of them is going to be our independent variable and one's our dependent variable. So when we're talking with months, or we're talking with, let's say, okay, I'm not going to use months. Let's say I'm talking with average temperature and my electricity bill. What is your input and what's your output?
The number of the time.
There's no time. Listen to my question one more time. You've got your average temperature and your bill. So like for me, when I get my electric bill in August, it's very different than when I get my electric bill in January. So what is my input? What's driving, what's
The temperature.
the temperature makes is dependent, or your bill is dependent upon your temperature. So your temperature is your input, your bill is your output. So in this case, we're going to input temperature and bill. Is temperature going to go into L1 or L2? L1, because that's my input. My output is what the bill is, depending on what the temperature is. So I'm going to go back to my calculator, and I'm looking at example 1. You're going to put all the average temperatures in L1. So I'm going to do 61, enter, 58, enter, and so on and so forth. You guys can look in your own book. This is Erin Hamilton. That's good. Yep. Thanks. Bye. Drew, they want you down in the office. So I'm gonna just type mine in here. So 61, 58. Is everybody doing it? So I'll okay. Just hit enter, and it goes to the next one.
And then after we do you want us to, for L2, do you want us to put the bill?
Yep. Okay, so I put in all of my data in L1. L2, you can just hit the right button over. This button right here will take you up to the top of L2. And you're going to put all of the electric bills. Now, this is where you got to be really careful typing in. You need to make sure you've got an L1 for every L2 or L2 for every L1. So for 61, I'm using 150. Okay. Once you have those Put your calculator down so I know you're done. What's wrong?
How do you go back?
Go back like,
Like delete, like I don't know.
just tab up to it. No?
Is
Okay.
it still in your bottom area?
Yeah, it's on like the bottom.
Okay, then go, take the arrow over that number, and then just click it.
Oh, yeah. So just go over it. Just take over. Okay, so we have our L1 and our L2 all together. What was our home button again? Stat. This is all saved in there. You don't have to save it or anything. So I'm going to hit my stat button, and now I would like to calculate the equation. I just gave you a hint as to where we're going to go next. We want to calculate the equation. What do you see on here that looks like calculate? Oh, good job. So I'm going to hit the right button. I'm going to get a whole nother list of information, of options. So we go stat and then to calc. We are doing linear regression is what this is called. I also want to point out one thing. We have been, what's this letter been for us? M. MX plus B is what we've done. So they're going to call it A. It's still the slope, okay? So when you get A equals, that's the slope. So linear regression is what we're going to use. Go down to 4 and hit enter. Does everybody see this screen?
Yeah.
The only thing you have to look at this screen is make sure that X is L1, Y is L2. It shouldn't change it unless you change it, but you might just want to make sure it starts out that way. But also because we share calculators, that just might be something good to look at before you actually calculate it. So we're going to go down to calculate. I'm going to hit enter. I'm going to get a bunch of information.
Y plus A.
Okay? How many of you guys have an R and an R squared? Nobody? It's probably some of you do. Okay, we want to get the R and the R squared on there because it actually tells us a piece of information. So we're going to go to second. Hit the second button up top here. And you're going to hit catalog, which is 0. So if you don't have the R and the R squared, if you have the R and the R squared, you don't have to do this. Yes? On what?
I have no idea where.
Okay, we'll hit
It
second
looks like
catalog.
you hit graph.
Yeah, we're not graphing.
Okay.
So hit second catalog. You should have this screen. Do you have this screen?
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to scroll down to diagnostic on. So you're going to scroll down till you see diagnostic. Mine is so slow, I have to stop or it's going to end up. Oh, it landed right on it. Okay, so we're going to go diagnostic on, and you're going to hit enter twice because it'll say done. And now it's going to turn on your R and your R squared.
Which one do we hit when we move on the calendar?
Diagnostic on.
Then what do you press?
Hit enter twice and it should say done. Okay. Now let's go back. What's our home button to find this? Stat. So I'm going to go stat. I'm going to go over here to calc. Which regression am I using? Linear. Hit enter. Go down to calculate. And you're going to get more information this time. You're going to get your A, your B, your R squared, and your R. Okay? Let me talk about what each of these pieces are. The A is obviously your slope. Okay? So this is a positive slope. It's increasing. So if I write my equation here, I have y equals 4.15x minus 117.68. This is my equation. You guys all agree with that? I just took the A and the B. The R squared is important because it tells us how accurate our scatter plot is. The highest you can get is 1. If it's 1, it's 100% accurate, which means the line is hitting every single dot that has been plotted. You're probably not going to see one that's 1, but you want to see it like, if you get an 83 on a test, it's probably okay. If you get a 67 on the test, it's probably not okay. If you get a 42 on a test, you kind of think of it like percentages, it's really not okay. So the higher this is, or the closer this is to 1, is the more accurate it is. So you can say, yes, it's a good predictor, or no, it's a bad predictor. So this would be an okay predictor because it's pretty close to 1. Okay? So I'll just put that, I'll add that to your notes here. So R squared, you want that to be close to 1 for a good predictor. Is it ER or OR? ER? I'll just make it look scribbly. Okay? That is one of your questions on your test. Is it a good prediction? Is it not a good prediction? So you're just looking at your R squared value. Okay? Let's go on to another one. This one I need to walk you through. I can't let you go on your own yet because it's a little bit different. But flip your page over to 94, and we're going to look at the year and the median home price in Florida. So the year and the median home price in Florida. I'm going to write it on here before we type it in our calculator. Okay, when you're dealing with years, you don't use the year as your X value. You start with year 0, and this is the very first year that we're talking about. So what's the first year that we're talking about in this data that they give you? 1940. So 0 times 0 represents your first year. So our next year that we talk about is 1950. What do you suppose I'm going to use for 1950?
1.
Not 1, 10, because it's 10 years past the first year. The next one is 1960. So what are you going to use for 1960? 20. You're just going how much difference it is from the first year. So 1970, how far do we go up here? Is 30. 80 is 40. 90 and 2000. Is that all we use? So 90 is 50 and 2000 would be 60. Because the year 2000 is 60 years past 1940. So this is what you're going to use in your L1, because the year, you don't look at this and say, okay, let's see, the average home is $58,000, so it must be 1960. You think of that reverse. In 1960, the average home was $58,000. So in our L2, we're going to have 23,100, 40,100, 58,100, 58,600, or 57. No, what is that? 57,600. Oh, it went down a little bit. Interesting. 80. Okay, I don't need to write this because you guys can look in your book. So what is our very first step? Always. Clear your list. Where do we go for that? Stat. And then you're going to call up clear list. Number 4. And then what list am I clearing?
L1, L2.
L1, comma, L2. I hit enter and it should say done. Everybody good with that?
No.
No?
We got okay, yeah.
Okay, what's my home button?
Stat.
Stat. How am I going to put in information?
Edit.
Edit. So L1,
0.
we're going to use 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and then 60, right?
Mm-hmm.
1940, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, year 2000. And then L2, I won't say these out loud because I'll let you guys just read these. But you're going to start with 23,100, and you guys put in your own. Yep. I bet you forgot your comma.
Oh, yeah, I bet I did
Yeah.
too.
That's all right. It's a common mistake. Okay, before you do anything, you always want to double check that you've got an X for a Y or a Y for an X, okay? Because if you don't, it's going to come up error and it'll say invalid dimensions, which means it's your data's off. So what's our home button? Stat. How are we going to calculate our equation? Go over to calc. Which regression am I using? Linear regression, number 4. And then calculate, and you should get your equation. Your equation here is going to be y equals, this is what you're going to have to write down on your paper, right? Y equals 1411.43 x plus 25114.29. Is this a good predictor? It's very good because it's a 96, so it's like a 96% accurate by looking at R squared. Yes?
So what would you say is like not like?
I'd probably say 60 and lower. Probably 50 and lower. These aren't going to be, if you're dealing in sending someone to the moon and using that data, maybe not that low, but for us in here in Algebra 2 and Beatrice, Nebraska, probably okay. It's what's what doing?
What's it calculating?
For this?
Yeah.
The equation that matches the scatter plot.
Okay, and that works 96% of the time?
It doesn't, no, not that it works 96% of the time, it's hitting 96% of the data points that's given. So if I have a scatter plot that looks like
Got it.
this, and then I have a line going here, that's not real accurate. But so that data is pretty continuous for a linear regression. And we're going to get to the point where all those other regressions that we looked at, you're going to have to decide which line shape fits the data based on the R squared value. Not for this chapter, but some later on in the day. Okay, I'm going to ask you a question now about this. So now I want to predict what the home median income is for the year 2010. Okay?
Oh shoot.
For the year 2010. You're not using your calculator for this. I mean, you'll type it in to do multiplication and addition. But for this one, I have to decide, first of all, was my year my X or my Y? X. Year was X. So we're going to be plugging into this X value to get the output, which is the median income prediction. What am I going to use for 2010? 70, because we used 60 for the year 2000. So we're going to plug 70 into this X value, and you'll just type in your calculator. And it's not going to be exact, so we've rounded. 1411.43. And then you're going to go times 70. And then you're going to go plus your B value, which is 25114.29. So a good predictor would be that in the year 2010, your home would cost about $124,000. Which is probably right for the median. But what if I would have said, okay, figure out what year it is if the median home value is $300,000. Where am I going to put my $300,000? Into the Y, because that's your home value. Okay, so you have to know what your X represents and you have to know what Y represents so that you can plug it into the correct area. Okay? What time are we done?
42.
Oh, perfect. So you have 10 minutes to do one on your own. So look on page 95. I'm going to have you guys go from start to finish, all on your own, but I'll get you started. We're going to do problem 3 at the top. Actually, maybe I should do one in your book.
We could. Problem 3. You start with 0, right?
No, I found a better one. But yeah, let's do problem 3 because it's actually less. So 1998 is going to be what number?
0.
0. Which means 2000 is going to be what number? 2. 2002 is going to be... Okay, I'll let you guys go with that. So this is finding out the average cost of whole milk per year. Huh.
Which one? The whole milk? Or 2% the whole milk?
It's, what does it give you?
No, like for this, for the problem.
It says whole milk in the exam, in the, oh, I see, because there's two different
A and B,
ones.
right?
Oh, you did the one below?
Yeah.
Okay.
We need A and B, right?
A and B are your M and B, yeah.
Yes, that's what we write down.
So whole milk?
Yeah, that's the one I was looking at, was the whole milk. But if you did the other one, well, you could probably switch it quick, because you can just type over the numbers. Don't go through all the clear lists. Just go into L1 and L2 and change your numbers.
What do we round to? 100?
I go 2 decimal places.
Even if it's a 0? How do we do the average?
Boom.
1997, is that what it says?
This, you just find your equation.
I got the equation.
Just find your equation. Okay, I should probably put mine in so I can see what the equation is.
Wait, how many?
2.62.
You rounded these.
I had 2.61.
Okay, so we have 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10.
Yeah, well, first I did the cost of
We're on the top.
Yeah, no, that's what she, 2%.
Okay, here's the equation I get. Oh, I did quadratic regression. Stat, calc. I don't, my button is so slow.
You just press 4.
And then enter.
Boom.
Okay, so I have an equation of y equals 0.09 x plus 2.62. Is that what you guys got?
Yeah.
Okay, so now let me ask you, what year is the cost of milk going to be $400? Let's hope not. Let's hope we're not alive for that. Let's hope we're not alive for that. $4.50. So what year is the cost of milk going to be $4.50? Where am I putting that $4.50? And for X or Y?
Y.
And for my Y, so I have 4.50 is equal to all of this And it's just an algebra problem now. So you have to subtract your $2.62 over. And then what am I going to divide by?
0.9.
0.09.
0.9.
So divided by 0.09. And I get 20.888. So at the year 20, what would be represented by the year 20? 2018.
Now we need to look it up, see.
Well, I don't think I've ever paid $4.50 for
2018.
a mill. 2018. Yeah.
Probably because there's.
Maybe cows got cheaper. I don't know. Okay, so here's the deal. I'm not going to have you guys do these tonight because you don't have a calculator necessarily. So, but tomorrow, the only time you're really going to practice this is on your concept quiz tomorrow. Because I don't want to push this back. Well, I might change this up.
This is not too.
This will be its own day. This will be Wednesday. So I have a little bit further for Wednesday.
No.